Video games come in all shapes and sizes. Some are well-crafted story-based games, other great games are centered on giving players a unique sensory experience. Some are green. Much like movies, every video game is a part of a genre, whether they fit into one or end up creating their own. And sometimes the genres games fit into are very cut and dry, such as Mario. I don't think anyone debate me saying that Mario is definitely a platformer. I feel sick. Often you'll find that one video game can fit into multiple genres, which is one of the reasons there are so many action-adventure games. And they're all completely warranted though. I mean, come on. Are you really gonna tell me that Ice Age Scratch Nutty Adventure isn't action-adventure? Like, come on. This is as good of an adventure as you can get. Wait, this isn't Scrat. This is some lame indie game. Video game genres also have their own subgenres, which is another reason why the action-adventure category is so bloated. Games like Street Fighter, Super Smash Bros., and Tekken are all action games by definition, but you'll never really hear anyone call them that. While they are all centered around action, they have their own niche, the fighting game genre, which is a much more descriptive label, to the point where people just call them fighting games instead of action games. But even then, you can go even deeper with the type of game in that niche. Sure, Smash Bros., Street Fighter, and Tekken are all action games. To get more specific, they're all fighting games, but you can go another layer deeper, because they're all different types of fighting games. The Street Fighter is an example of a 2D fighting game, which isn't really referring to the animation style, but the fact that there is no moving along the Z-axis in these games. There's also the added caveat that 2D fighting games are also on one wide stage without any other platforms to stand on, limiting the player's mobility. The reason this caveat is necessary is because games like Smash Bros., Nick All-Stars, and Multiverses are all 2D fighting games, but you are much more mobile due to the addition of platforms, hence the name Platform Fighters for this niche. The Tekken franchise is different from these other two sub-genres because while you do primarily play like a 2D fighter, you can dodge enemy moves by sidestepping towards or away from the camera. Other 3D fighting games differ from Tekken by allowing the player full access to the Z-axis. Examples of games like these are Dragon Ball Xenoverse and Sifu. Yes, Sifu is a fighting game. I know it's stupid, but Jeff Keighley told me it was. So yes, even though two games can be wildly different and take part in separate subgenres, classifying games can be very difficult as those two games are in the same widespread primary genre. And with all that information and context established, let's look at the best games of each genre. Just as a preface though, games are only going to be in genres that are most descriptive or the genre that best fits each game. And I'm also only going to talk about one game in each franchise. For example, I'd only put one Street Fighter game in the fighting game genre instead of the action genre. Speaking of which, fighting games! Street Fighter is the staple of fighting games, and it's contested as to which game is the best. Now, if you don't know what you're talking about and want to sound cool, you probably go with the classics and say Street Fighter 1. You know, I think it's pretty clear to see why no one actually likes this one. And while Street Fighter 3 isn't typically known as the best Street Fighter, it's really fun because of this.
You didn't jump.
Oh, okay. Animations in this game, you know what they reminded me of? Okay.
What?
Okay.
Ow.
Am I better at this game than you are? I'm probably better
No.
And hey, here's a candidate for best Street Fighter game. What about Street Fighter 5? And let's be real, the newly released Street Fighter 6 is really solid, but I think the two games people would say are the best are 2 and 4. I love the scratchy art style of 4 and it has tons of characters. Please do awful things to me. But I'd definitely say that Street Fighter 2 is the best Street Fighter game. It's an absolute classic, it's one of the most memorable arcade games of all time. And I think like me, a lot of people grew up with this as their Street Fighter, and so it's what pops in a lot of people's head when they think of the franchise. Another great fighting game is Super Smash Bros., specifically Ultimate. Smash Bros. Melee is great and is probably the best one competitively, but I mean, come on. It's Ultimate. You know, I don't know if you actually picked up on it, because Nintendo used subliminal messaging. They subtly plant the seed of the idea that everyone is here. I didn't even realize this for a few years. It's that discreet. Games like Street Fighter are really dependent on skill, and usually whoever's better between the two competitors will win. And that is how Smash works competitively, but with a wide variety of characters, some requiring no skill whatsoever, and the casual mechanic of items, Smash is also a great party game with an even playing field. I feel like if you want to give fighting games a try, these are the ones to go to first. Next up, Roguelikes. I fucking hate roguelikes. Deathloop is honestly one of my least favorite games of all time, despite the amazing aesthetic and characters. The idea of starting over and grinding for hours only to get a little bit farther than your last run is comparable to banging my head against the wall. But with every video game genre that I hate, there's always at least one exception, and for roguelikes there are two. Risk of Rain 2 is very fun and is carried by its multiplayer. It gets fun fast by getting much more items, exponentially making you more powerful and mobile. The other exception to this rule is Hades. It is so fantastic. The music is probably the highlight of the game, and while it can be a grind, various weapons and boons as well as upgrades keep it fresh. The characters have great writing, designs, and voice acting. I love the dialogue they use. Hot take, but I'm a big fan of English. And just look at these characters. I don't know about you, but I'm definitely questioning my sexuality. But there's one roguelike that I really love, and the funny thing is that no one realizes it's a roguelike. And that's Call of Duty Zombies. Think about it, you go through rounds that escalate in difficulty, and you get better and farther each time, and get farther into the story with Easter eggs. And in BO3, you can advance yourself with blueprints and gobblegum, which are permanent. Same in Black Ops Cold War, in which the more you play, the more you can upgrade your perks. I know people don't consider it one, but it's my video, and COD Zombies is my favorite roguelike. Leave a comment about how dumb I am. And now we're moving on to role-playing games, and I'm not even going to front with you. This is another genre that I'm not a fan of, but has exceptions. One of these exceptions is Paper Mario the Origami King. I've never played a Paper Mario game, but this is one I've always wanted to play. I mean, can you blame me for including it? I mean, look at this. It looks so fun. I want to play it so bad. Same with Fallout New Vegas, which I did want to mention because of its amazing reputation. I haven't gotten around to playing it, but I will eventually. One I have played, though, is Cyberpunk 2077. I know this one got some backlash, but if you stand your ground and fight through the bugs, you'll find an amazing story experience with great characters. If you'd like to see my full thoughts on Cyberpunk 2077, I already reviewed it, so go check out that video. But basically, to sum it up, it's like an origami crane. Or an origami king. It's just composed of worthless paper, but due to its artistic value, it's greater than the sum of its parts. And the next genre we're covering is the Battle Royale. It's Fortnite. Trust me, it's Fortnite. This is genuinely the best Battle Royale, and I'm definitely not just saying that to justify how much money I've spent on this game. I'm dying with no regrets. Even if that means going through mental gymnastics to justify my poor financial choices. When it comes to survival games, you can't go wrong with Resident Evil. Technically, these are survival horror, but come on, you survive with horror. I can't get too nitpicky or this video is going to be 3 hours long. 7 is much more of a difficult survival game because you get about 3 bullets throughout the entire campaign, but I'd have to recommend Resident Evil 2. A lot of people who love this franchise think that RE2 is the best one, and you really can't go wrong with it. Minecraft is a survival game because, that's literally the name of one of its game modes, but I'd consider this game as more of a sandbox, so guess what? This is a transition. Minecraft is practically the very definition of a sandbox game. You can build and create pretty much anything you want, from monuments to redstone contraptions to this monstrosity. This game is such a vast and amazing game, and it's currently the best-selling game of all time, so it's strange to look back and remember that this used to be an indie game. And if you want something just a little bit different than Minecraft, you can always play the worst version. I know Terraria and Minecraft are buddies, and that it's a good game, but I don't know, I've played Terraria and it never really clicked for me. I find the 2D and pixel art style to be a massive hindrance and just makes the game more confusing. It's just not a game for me. So when you compare these two games, I'm definitely going with Microsoft on this one. Oh fuck, did I say that? Okay, I know this is more of an action-adventure, but GTA 5 is one of the best sandboxes I've ever played. The story is a great sandbox, but especially the online. Giving the player a goal and setting, as well as the context, while also letting them do whatever they want, is amazing. Sure, you can't build anything, but you can fly a car, play Highway Frogger, grind to get a yacht. The possibilities are near endless. I definitely call GTA 5 a sandbox. And not just because I needed to trim down the action-adventure section. So let's move on to the exact opposite of GTA, family games. This isn't really a full-on section of the video, as it is an honorable mention, but in my opinion, the best family game of all time is LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga. I'm saying LEGO Star Wars because I think that family game really is the best descriptor for it. And a lot of other family games have different genres that fit them better. Like Mario Kart is definitely a better racing game than it is a family game. And not only is LEGO Star Wars tons of fun, and full of collectibles and goals to achieve 100%, but it also has that unpolished look. There's something about how ugly this game is that's endearing. It's one of the best kids games I've ever played, rivaled by LEGO Batman 1, LEGO Batman 2, LEGO Indiana Jones, I might be biased. What about sports games? Which one is the best? Well, I have an opinion on this, and boy is it strong. When talking about which sports game is the best, there is the right answer, and then there's the rightest answer. Obviously, Wii Sports is one of the greatest sports games of all time, but I passionately believe Wii Sports Resort is the best. And don't you dare argue with me on this, I will fuck you up in table tennis. You don't know what these hands can do, I can rally till heat exhaustion sets in. Now moving on to racing games, I think we all know there's only one best, and you all know it, say it with me now. Crazy Frog. Seriously though, Mario Kart 8 is probably my favorite racing game. Mario Kart Wii is amazing and so nostalgic to me, but with the DLC coming out for 8, it takes the cake. I do also like Gran Turismo 7 with how realistic it is, but the more cartoonish the game is, the better. So when I want to play a fun, simple racing game, but I'm not in the mood for a kart racer, Dirt 5 is the perfect pick for me. I love how easy it is to learn how to drift, but it's really hard to master, and it's graphically really great. And the side objectives in each race provide great mini-goals to go for, but can divert your attention away from keeping in first, potentially costing you the race. Alright, I'm gonna be honest, I have 3 picks for the best puzzle games, and they're all by the same people. My favorite puzzle game of all time is Tetris, and Tetris Effect just takes it to a whole new level. It's so fun, and it really gives the player one of the best and most impressive visual and auditory experiences ever. The world in the background moves with you, and apparently it has a good story, according to my brother. He hasn't finished at the time of recording, but he is working on a whole video about the Tetris Effect story and the background behind it, so go check it out if you're interested. My other 2 picks are Lumines and Humanity, both by the same people who made Tetris Effect. Lumines is like playing Tetris but with different rules, and Humanity is a great and interesting puzzle game with great mechanics. It's also got a dog made entirely out of light. 10 out of 10. And then we got the critically acclaimed strand type game. That's the best genre. I think the best game goes without saying that it's Santa's Xmas Adventure. I think you all knew this was coming. 2 simulator games hold a special place in my heart. Those being Thrillville, Off the Rails, and Animal Crossing. Specifically City Folk. That is nostalgia talking though, so I'll give the slot to New Horizons, as I feel that's just the better Animal Crossing game. You want to talk about a simulator game? Oh, I got you. Power Wash Simulator, baby! Oh yeah, best game ever made, game of the year. But actually, it is a really good game, you should go try it. There are lots of shooter games, a lot of them being in the same franchise. Can't wait for Modern Warfare 3 2, the sequel to Modern Warfare 2 2. When it comes to FPSs, Call of Duty is a good place to start, and I think my favorite might be Call of Duty 4. I've always liked the multiplayer of the first 3 Black Ops games more than the Modern Warfare multiplayer, but the COD 4 story and campaign is really fun. It is important to note that I haven't finished a lot of COD campaigns. I also haven't played any Halo campaigns except Reach. But I liked it, so I definitely recommend it. But then there's the third-person shooter genre, one I actually prefer more than first-person shooters. And I know there's probably a lot better out there, but my favorite third-person shooter of all time has got to be Star Wars Battlefront 2. Not this one, the original. Me and my brother played this game non-stop as kids, as well as the first one, and if you know, you know, but Nam Carver is a fucking piece of shit. This game is so jank, but you can tell it was made with love. My favorite game mode was Assault at Mos Eisley's. I remember having tiny little baby hands that couldn't aim for shit, and trying to kill a little tiny green goblin doing gymnastics was the hardest challenge I'd faced in my preschool career. This is a game I will still revisit, and while it is rougher on the edges, it's so fun. What sucks real bad though is that Battlefront 3 was practically finished when it got cancelled. But hey, I'm not gonna do something insane like campaign for this dead franchise to be revived purely because I want it. That would be a crazy thing for someone to do. The platforming genre is probably the most iconic video game genre, and there are still some absolute banger platformer games coming out to this day, with my first pick for the best platformers coming out only 5 years ago. Celeste is honestly one of the most impressive and innovative platformers I've ever played. I played it a bit when it came out in 2018, but dropped it after a while. And then about a month or 2 ago, I finally finished it, and damn was it good. It's definitely one of my favorite 2D platformers of all time, and it rides that line of just barely being easy enough to not be frustrating while still providing a challenge. That is a line that the B-sides completely laugh at though. I really appreciate the addition of the B-sides to provide an optional but much more difficult challenge for players who want it. The B-sides ride their own line of being difficult but fair. If it was any harder, it would be bullshit, but with each screen of the B-sides, no matter how many times you die, you know you can beat it. And that's a sentiment shared by one of the best 3D platformers of all time, Crash Bandicoot. Crash is so much fun, but there was a while when I didn't think so. When the Insane Trilogy came out, I got to the koala and got so angry that I stopped playing for years. Then in January of 2023, I got up at 4 AM due to a fucked sleep schedule and started completely over. I don't know why, but the game just clicked for me that morning, and for each level, I realized that I could beat it. I finally finished the game and beat Neo Cortex at around 9:30 AM in time for IHOP, baby! Crash 1 is a game that I love and still revisit for a few levels whenever I'm craving a challenge, and even though it seems impossible, getting the Platinum Trophy has been on my backlog for a bit now, and I definitely intend on getting it. You know what's not fair? Super Meat Boy. I fucking hate this game. But for some reason, I always come back to it. I'm so close to beating it, but after a few attempts on the Dr. Fetus boss fight, I always lose any drive to finish it, and it just bums me out. Which is weird, because none of the other boss fights were like that. Some were even harder than Dr. Fetus, but I just got more angry and wanted to beat it more and more, and I just can't get around to beating it. It's definitely not a game I'd recommend to everyone, only if you love platformers and want a good challenge. Another great challenge is Ollie Ollie World, an auto-scroller platformer where you make it to the end by not crashing and breaking your neck. This game is really underrated and the best of its franchise. I played a little bit of the other Ollies, but World is obviously the best in my opinion, and has a fantastic art style. I love how deep they dive into dumb skater nonsense, such as everyone being rad or tubular. But in my opinion, there's one platformer that stands above the rest as my favorite platformer of all time, and I think a lot of people agree. Odyssey. My favorite is Odyssey. Odyssey is such a good platformer. I'm not even close to being the first one to say this, but Odyssey truly is a love letter to the Mario franchise, with the New Donk City celebration being one of my favorite video game levels of all time. Each world is unique and has an aesthetic it nails. There are one or two worlds I don't like, such as the wooden world, but it's not for lack of creativity. The outfits are awesome too. The tux is one of the best looks I've ever seen. The builder outfit is a nod to Mario Maker. In this outfit, I'm a guy named Vito Stromboloni and my favorite show is The Sopranos. Everything about this game is visually amazing. Look at how absolutely thirst-quenching that water is. I need to dunk my head in that. It also has one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard. And spoilers for a 6-year-old game, but Cappy's capture ability is fun on its own. But then I captured Bowser? No fucking way, dude. 10 out of 10. Game of the year 2017. And well, here we are, the genre with the second most amount of applicable titles. The one with the most is the genre of video game. To make sure this section isn't too long, I'm really only going to count games that can only be described as an action-adventure, as opposed to something like Resident Evil Village, an action-adventure horror. To start off, I think one of the most underrated games of all time is Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, and I think a lot of people wrote this one off because of its predecessor, Marvel's Avengers. One of the worst games of all time. But Guardians of the Galaxy is really good, as you juggle keeping your teammates alive and useful, using their movesets to your advantage. And when you rally the team and that retro music hits, you get into a rhythm of fighting and alley-ooping enemies between characters. It's so much fun. Next up we have another Marvel title, Spider-Man for the PS4. This really is the best way to describe this game, as there's action, they throw some adventuring through New York in there. That's about it. In my opinion, this is the best Spider-Man game. It's better than its Miles Morales spin-off and better than the original PS2 game, which is saying a lot coming from me. I practically destroyed 2 PlayStation 2s playing that game non-stop. Let's be honest though, Spider-Man 2 is gonna blow this game out of the water. I'd also say Jedi Survivor is a great example of action-adventure. Lightsaber and force combat is some of the best I've seen, and venturing to these different planets and systems is incredibly fun. All the legendary monsters and bounties are great fights, and when those two characters show up, especially the more story-prominent of the two, damn, it gets the nerd part of my brain excited. But there's one franchise that takes the cake as the golden standard of action-adventure, and remains the staple of the genre, and that's Uncharted. Yeah, this game has puzzle sections, but it's just a part of the story of the treasure hunt, and set pieces like Libertalia and the icy mountains on your way to Shambhala are irreplaceable. The Tomb Raider franchise is really good, but I haven't played the old ones. I've only played Tomb Raider the Definitive Edition, which I liked, a little bit of Shadow, but not too much, because I got like 70% of the way through Rise and realized I hated it. I can't blame Tomb Raider too much because they're constantly ripping each other off and Indiana Jones off, but playing through Rise I just felt, wow, Uncharted did everything way better. Especially the set pieces, which just seemed like a poor man's Uncharted. So I definitely say a game in the Uncharted franchise. And if I had to recommend one, Uncharted 1 is a good starting point, but Uncharted 4 is my favorite, and you can pick up on that one as your first and understand the general history of these characters. But really, go play the whole series, including Lost Legacy and the Vita game if you can, Golden Abyss. You won't regret it, they're that good. So yeah, those are some of my favorites and what I think are the best games in each genre, based off of what I've played. Sure, I missed some big ones, like SpongeBob is a great platformer, The Quarry is a good horror game, The New Dead Island seemed to be a hit, and The Witcher 3 is one of the most iconic RPGs of all time. You're probably asking, Carter, where's Battlefield? Where's The Legend of Zelda? Where's the Arkham franchise? How on earth could you possibly talk about puzzle games and not mention Portal? You skipped my favorite video game of all time, Jumanji the video game. Well, I hear you, and I empathize with you. But lucky for us, I've got a cheat code that lets me sort any game from SpongeBob to Portal in an instant without having to make a video on it. So if you're wondering why I didn't talk about a certain game, literally any game at all, I got 2 words for you.